How's it going, listeners? Chris GST, web admin for pwponderings.com. Here again, we have a very special guest on the line. I couldn't do this on my own, so I brought along Des. Des, how are you doing, sir?
I wouldn't let you do things by your own, Chris. I'm here with you to talk to our awesome guest this evening.
For sure. We're here with one of our most esteemed guests. He is a former owner of Ring of Honor, Cary Silkin. Cary, how are you doing tonight?
Very well, and thank you for having me on tonight.
Well, we definitely appreciate the time you're giving us. Des, I just want to start real quick. So, short history lesson. I have been a Ring of Honor fan since its inception. I started the Ring of Honor live journal community, which at one point was listed on the Ring of Honor website. This was back in 2002 when it started, and pretty much just been a fan ever since then. Des, if you could just let our listeners know a little bit, when did you start?
I actually started late, and I was a late bloomer for the Ring of Honor era. And then thanks to Ring of Honor's website and all sorts of DVDs, I went all the way back to the beginning. But I actually discovered how great Ring of Honor was in 2009 when Ring of Honor started doing internet pay-per-views. And that's sort of how I got hooked into it. And then I kind of went back through a bit of a time capsule, I guess, and went all the way back to 2002. So I've been entrenched in Ring of Honor ever since, writing reviews for their TV show and all sorts of Ring of Honor content. So Ring of Honor has definitely left a huge impression on me as a wrestling fan and the way I look at pro wrestling.
For sure, and obviously all of our listeners and all of us reading the site, we want to thank you, Cary, because you have pretty much started I would say, a revolution in wrestling. Of course, when Ring of Honor first started in 2002, there was the first management team, and then in 2003, the rebirth of Ring of Honor started. And that's where we're going to start, Cary. When you first thought of you bought into Ring of Honor and you knew, well, possibly you didn't know what Ring of Honor would turn into, but obviously you had great hopes for it. Otherwise, why would you have put your backing behind it? When you first saw, I guess, the product and what you thought it could be, what were those thoughts going through your head?
Like most people that I've met that are involved in the wrestling business, whether it's guys like yourselves, wrestlers themselves, management people, photographers, whatever, various people, technical sides of it, 99.9% of the people started out as fans. Very few guys in the business, and I could go down a list of wrestlers. There's like one or two that I could name that were legitimately not fans that happened to morph into the business. But anyway, we're not going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the rest of us, and that was me. I was a long-time wrestling fan, and I followed wrestling since the time I was a kid, which is a long time ago compared to you guys. We're talking about I started watching wrestling in the late '60s, and as a little kid, and I followed it. I always followed it. Very, very quietly because it wasn't very cool. And I had to find select friends that would put up with my wrestling, my wrestling fandom. But anyway.
So things haven't really changed.
No. It was totally the same. It was almost an embarrassment to go into a store to buy a wrestling magazine. But anyway, there was a few kids that liked it. We used to go all the time to the, I lived in the New York area, so we would go to the Garden and to other shows. And anyway, I don't know if you guys know this, but I got involved in the wrestling business. It's a long story, but I'm going to give you a really fast version. I was involved in a wrestling magazine that was exclusively printed in Puerto Rico in 2000 and 2001, 2002. I have a close friend of mine who was a writer, and he was a rock and roll writer, and still is as well. He did a little wrestling stuff, and we just had this crazy idea. And we did it, and that quote-unquote put me in the business. Simultaneously, I knew some of the guys who were getting started with the Ring of Honor project from going to ECW, right? I was an ECW fan.
Yeah.
I was an ECW fan before they, before Heyman came there. When Ed Gilbert was there, and I went to some of those early shows, and ECW, a magazine was going on. I mean, barely. ECW closed. Gabe and his friends started Ring of Honor, and I knew these guys from ECW from going to the shows, and I got involved, and the rest we won't go into the rest of the history of what happened, but the rest is history, and I wound up owning the company.
Yeah, and Des and I were talking offline, and as Des just mentioned, he really started watching in 2009. So there's quite a bit of history. And Des, I'm not trying to insult you, but there's a lot of history for Ring of Honor. So Cary, I don't know how any other way to say this, but in my opinion, Ring of Honor really changed the landscape and the way indie wrestling was presented in terms of the style and the presentation. And yes, I know that probably some of our listeners are like, oh no, there was King of the Indies, there's the ECWA Super 8. But really, when you think about the types of matches that Ring of Honor was putting on, especially when you had guys like Samoa Joe and Homicide, which really started that reborn phase of Ring of Honor, that hard-hitting style was just, in my opinion, tremendous. Now, as you noted, you were a fan back in the 60s, so you saw guys like Bruno, and how did you feel about that difference of style?
Well, I liked the product, and as a wrestling fan, going back, we'll take it back to ECW. They ECW at its peak. My peak for ECW was when not only they were doing the heavy duty hardcore stuff, you also had Malenko and Jericho and all those good, there were so many good guys there, Benoit, and there was such good wrestling. It was such a mixture, and they would do, that early Paul Heyman era. They would, do things that the big companies will say were, scared to do or just didn't want to go to those lengths, and I liked that a lot, and Gabe Sapolsky was there, and he's very bright as far as his booking and his and he saw this also. So when I got involved, I liked what was going on as far as the product, and the fans were not the fans weren't getting shortchanged, and what I didn't like was I'm a rock and roll guy too. I'm not a rock and roll star, but I've always been a rock and roll fan. And I'm also, been in the entertainment business as far as being on the end of the ticket business. And I had a short career many years ago doing lighting and on a small level, theatrical and for bands on a small level. And but that was missing. And you could have Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels and Bryan Danielson and these kick-ass guys, but it looked like shit. And I pushed to have, let's make this look a little better. It's going to be a DVD product, and if you go to a concert, I don't give a shit if it's Metallica, Pearl Jam, Garth Brooks, or the Foo Fighters, or Barry Manilow. When the concert starts, what happens? The lights go out, right?
Absolutely.
And that was missing. And we were not going to rival Monday Night Raw or TNA or whomever. It was, on a way smaller scale. But nevertheless, I wanted this to be a show. This is a presentation, and I added that, I remember Gabe was like, oh, well, we don't need that and all this. But, he changed his mind quickly when he saw it. And, we had, a little rock and roll to it. And even though it was on a very rudimentary kind of basis, it looked good. And, the lights went out and there were ring lights and there was a little bit of entrance lights. And as, the years went on. I'm talking about the early years, 04, 05. We added little stuff, and it looked really good. And I think that's something that's not spoken about enough. I also had the idea of bringing in the metal. I used to watch Raw, and they had they didn't, years ago they had no guardrails, way back. Years ago they had guardrails. Then Raw started with the black rails around. It's like, foam almost. But,
yeah.
And so I thought,
whatever.
why don't we have metal rails? And, I really wasn't thinking about the people banging on them, but let's get the name, the ROH logo all around. And, it's morphed into those metal guardrails that people like to bang, and it was just like this synergy. Sometimes 1 + 1 = 3, and you don't know what's going to happen. So you add all that together, plus the great wrestling, and the right guys at the right time, and you get that synergy that things happened, and I think that was the combination that really happened that got things moving along, that people don't really talk about that much when they look at it like that.
Right, and I think a lot of...
I hope that made sense, that whole thing.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely it made sense. I mean, because, I think about what you're saying, and I think back, okay, so Ring of Honor, you started with the black ring.
Watch a Ring of Honor tape from 2002 and watch one from 2005.
Oh, God, it's a complete difference. You see the...
Right.
The Ring of Honor apron, half black, half red, with the Ring of Honor logo right there.
Right.
Or
the lights go out, the entrance lights, and once again, we're not going to compete with Vince McMahon, but it looked okay. And
it gave that feel that you were at a show, and it made it special. When you go to Metallica, or whomever you might like to go to. I'll take Metallica.
Well, we'll take whatever, whether it's Metallica, Coldplay, or whoever you might like, Madonna. There'll be a point in the show where I'm just talking out my ass here, but there's a point but I'm not. There's a point in the show where, let's just say, there's one burst of yellow lighting and all swing in at this one key moment of this one drum break, and it happens for 1 second, and then all of a sudden there's another break and everything turns blue, and then there's everything's white. Now nobody in that crowd goes, wow, the yellow to the blue to the white, but they know something happened, and it's just like a pop because it goes with the music and it's a special moment, and so it's like nobody was sitting there going like, oh wow, look at the red lights when Homicide's lighting, when he would come out, would be all red, or the various minor effects we could get, with what we could do. But it added to the whole vibe, and that's if you watch the tapes, it comes across in some of them.
No, I agree. It always came across as something special, especially when you had like a guest star from Japan or England or anywhere. I mean, you had the lights going off, and as you said, any effects that you guys could just make it feel special. You would darken the whole arena except for the spotlight, like when Danielson came out, and people knew this is special. This is
and what else was special was, of course, this talent, and there was just great talent and great special attractions along the way, whether they were, for lack of a better way to put it, old timers, special guests, even non-wrestling kind of guys. I mean, meaning like, a Paul Bearer making an appearance, or Bobby Heenan, or whomever it might be in a one-shot. It was Dusty or Terry Funk. Or, how do you go wrong with that being added into this, great crew of young, hungry guys that are just, and there was a very intense, there was just this ethic that everybody, a good atmosphere, and where it wasn't a lot of backstabbing, but everybody wanted to, it was a team effort, and guys wanted to, not one up each other, but add to, it's a conglomerate. When you go to a good wrestling show, it's like going to a good concert, and using the concert comparison again, you don't go to see some band and they just hit you with their top. It's got to be a roller coaster ride, and there's slower points and different things happening, and the same with a good wrestling show. And I think we created that for many years.
Cary, Ring of Honor,
and we still do.
That's right. Cary, the presentation has definitely, if you look back, like you said, from a tape from 11 years ago and look back at something from more recent, it's definitely improved significantly and for the better. But you add to that, Ring of Honor, I've always called, from when it started, I thought of it as the little company that could, in that it has always attracted a specific niche audience, and the audience has grown over the years, obviously. But at the time when Ring of Honor launched, I feel it launched at a very opportune time when the internet was just sort of taking hold and wrestling fandom was sort of transitioning over to the internet. Do you attribute at all? I mean, obviously the internet is a big source of revenue for Ring of Honor now with internet pay-per-views and merchandise sales. At the very beginning, when the internet was becoming the source of buzz for professional wrestling, how big do you think that was for Ring of Honor at the time, and how much has that improved in the last 10 years?
It was absolutely essential, and I probably didn't even realize it as much as, I don't think anybody did, but that was our outlet, that was our TV, that was everybody's, and it was also at a time, when the company started, when, ECW had folded, Ring of Honor was based out of the Philly area. It really wasn't planning to go too much beyond that, and, when I got involved full-time, and there was some success, and this internet buzz was absolutely we wouldn't have been able to do anything without it. So yeah, you're 1,000% right, and it kept the company, it put us on the map, and we were able to go to places that we never dreamed. I mean, the first time the company went to, even to Boston, it was a big deal, let alone, going to these other cities, whether it be Dayton or Chicago, and let alone going to, the UK twice.
That's right, Frontiers of Honor.
And to Japan twice, as well as, making Canada a regular stop in the Ring of Honor, tours. Nobody ever thought that would happen. But, like I said, there was this synergy of the fan base, the product, the internet. People wanted, they wanted an alternative to what they were getting. And, it just happened, and the talent was great. We were blessed with great talent, great guys, and we lost, like the attrition rate that happens in wrestling, that is always going to happen, because that's the way it is. And they put a fork in the company many times. Oh, you lost this guy, you lost that guy. Oh, now what? And it just opened spaces for other people, and to rise, to elevate, to become stars, and that still exists today, and it's really exciting to to watch the Royal Rumble last night, and to see Claudio, and to see Tyler, and for not to mention, of course, Punk and Bryan and other guys that have been through, WWE or had little runs, and so that's so when we lost guys, other guys gave them opportunities, and that's just our position. And a company like Ring of Honor always going to be our position, until, unless there's like a major change happening, over the next few years or something. But that's just the way it is.
Right. I mean, it is just the natural order, quote unquote, if there is such a thing of business and how that works. And you guys always just kind of landed on your feet and even went beyond that. I mean, I remember when there was the Exodus and, the relations between Ring of Honor and TNA weren't at the greatest and, for various reasons. But the talent stepped up. And as you said, it always, for Ring of Honor, I think for a lot of our listeners and for me as well, is just always the talent that came through and made Ring of Honor what it is. Okay, I guess the other part I want to ask about is you, and I'm not going to say you guys, obviously you weren't like the first ones, but you brought over talent from Japan and really integrated them into your, call it the Ring of Honor universe. We're talking like Kenta and Morishima was champion, and guys like Marufuji were just really dominating Ring of Honor. And that time period, Cary, that had to be, I want to ask you, was it exciting? I mean, clearly it was exciting, but how exciting was it to have these international stars, but also putting them into a universe that it was pretty much sink or swim, because a lot of them didn't speak English.
It was crazy. I mean, I remember having our first meetings with the guys from Noah. And, Noah, there's such a these are gentlemen and wonderful people to work with. And, they wanted a presence in the U.S. And we, it's like, luck plays a part in it too, where we were lucky that they didn't have for whatever reason, WWE didn't want to deal with them, and TNA, they weren't dealing with them also. So they liked our product, and they had been bringing some guys over who'd worked for Ring of Honor. So they were interested in, coming here. For them at the time, it was just not to our advantage, but it was to help them, because they would, they felt having their stars wrestle in the United States for Ring of Honor and then showing those matches in Japan, because, the United States was still considered a, important place, to wrestle. And, so it worked for both companies. And, but to get to deal with those guys, it was like, in the beginning, it was like, wow, we can't believe it, and, they were so cool to work with and such nice people. And hopefully, we're not done with, with Noah. We'll see what happens. I don't want to speak for the company, as far as from a management standpoint, but, you never know what's going to happen. And, but my time with them, was great. And, the talent, I mean, we don't have to talk about, Kenta, Marufuji, Morishima having the belt was thrilling. And then, the big payoff was getting to, go to Japan, twice, working with them as well as Dragon Gate. And, but Noah was the ones that, orchestrated everything to get us over there. We couldn't have done it without them. We're not going to be able to sell tickets for Japan. So the first time we went there, both companies helped us, to do the shows. And, it was very, very, very exciting. And the matches with these guys, Kenta and Brian and, I mean, there's so many of them, and having Kabashi come over, and Samoa Joe, that classic, that was like, I mean, you guys are too young, but that was like, Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier, that was like the big fight match with that real feel, and Morishima and Marufuji, there were so many good matches, and dealing with these guys was a pleasure, and it was a great, it was a great experience at that time. And, it's funny. I don't really watch a lot of the old. Once in a while, I do, but you know, when you see these, you know, when you see it, they're really historic.
Absolutely, and I mean, I'm talking about, you know, Glory by Honor, and just having Misawa in a Ring of Honor ring, and just moments like that just, I think for the fans was.
Yes, I didn't even
tremendous.
mention Misawa in my. This is how many guys he had, you know, not to mention Liger and you know, it's just been amazing, you know, and but yeah, it's like there's just it's been a thrill, you know, and it's like sometimes I always have to look back at like you know, match by show by show, match by match, and see some of the things that you know we did, you know, under my ownership, and it was a lot of good stuff there.
For sure, Cary. I mean, you have a lot to be proud of. One of my favorite shows of all time, we're just talking about wrestling in general, not just Ring of Honor, is Final Battle 2003. You had the partnership with All Japan at the time. You had Kojima in the ring. You had Great Muto. It's a show that I cherish having. But Des, you know, we've kind of caught up to around 2009, what some refer to as the HDNet series, you know, when, you know, having guys like Morishima as champion and Kenta on American TV, that's a big time. So, Des, I really want to get your thoughts since this is kind of the time that you became a Ring of Honor fan.
I did. I started catching up with the HDNet show, got driven to the internet pay-per-views. And, I mean, HDNet, Cary, I want to get your take on the HDNet and just its initial launch, because the HDNet channel at the time was very much a part of the MMA world, presenting its own series of MMA fights and its own little promotion. And when it was announced that Ring of Honor would get a slot on HDNet, it sort of felt apropos that Ring of Honor, even back then, was obviously a very hard-hitting promotion. And if an MMA fan wanted to watch pro wrestling and still sort of feel at home, I kind of felt like Ring of Honor was that company for that person to watch. So was that?
It was the right, you know. It was the right fit, and the guys from HDNet were really good to us, and I don't want to say anything negative. You know, the only problem was that they just didn't have enough exposure at the time, where, you know, they were on enough cable networks where it made a huge difference for us. But, you know, they were really behind the product. And, you know, it was, believe me, it was those guys more than it was me, you know, to get that deal done. And it's just unfortunate that, you know, I mean, they're good, they're a successful channel, and who am I to say anything regarding Mark Cuban not being a successful man, right? So
who are any of us to say anything?
Right,
yeah.
Right. You know, but as far as at that time, the show was good. They were at a funny spot with the cable companies, and it's just, you know, if they'd have been positioned, you know, better, I think we would have benefited a lot more from it. But it just wasn't that way. But, you know, it gave us a hell of a platform. Whomever saw the shows, you know, it put it, you know, it was there we were, you know, before and after Monday Night Raw, if you could get us.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I have all 10 of Ring of Honor and HDNet volumes, and man, you put those matches up against anything else in wrestling in TNA or WWE at that time period, it holds up and exceeds it. I mean, it's just, I feel that Ring of Honor for a time period, and maybe, you know, we can talk, you know, that's between 04 up to 08. I mean, there was a time when all that was carrying me as a wrestling fan in general was Ring of Honor. And I think a lot of pundits have said very similar things, because at the time TNA and WWE, they weren't at the peak of what they could be. So there was definitely time, even though not a lot of people got to see it on HDNet, which is now Access TV, but it still carried, there was a lot of weight to the matches. But I mean, I guess Des, you know, from that time period, since you do the recaps for Wrestling Observer and obviously other websites, what were your thoughts on the product? And obviously, Cary, I think you have you should have a lot of pride in that time.
Well, at the time, Ring of Honor, to me, just catching it on HDNet every week, I got hooked immediately. I had always been a fan of TNA's X Division, and obviously a lot of the X Division stars came from Ring of Honor. So I went back and I watched all those matches from Ring of Honor, the past, the stuff that you were talking about, Chris, and the forays into Japan and with Japanese superstars and the forays into the UK. And I just immediately became hooked on Ring of Honor. And I got driven to the Final Battle show in 2009, which I believe was the first internet pay-per-view for Ring of Honor. And from then on, the relationship, just watching that hard-hitting style, which to me was totally new because I had not at that point been really a fan of any independent wrestling. It was strictly WWE, TNA, and Lucha Libre. And from that point on, just the love affair between myself and Ring of Honor, it sort of began, and it's it has not fizzled out. So.
Well, they were on. I mean, Cary. Speak about this. You guys did do, I guess, what we could call the traditional pay-per-view. I
Right.
watched you guys on DirecTV and on Dish when I had it.
Those were some
how was
great
that?
shows.
Yeah,
Those are fantastic shows.
And they did, those shows were the ones that were on a non-live, pay-per-view is in a more traditional pay-per-view sense, except that it wasn't live because we just could not afford to do
right.
that.
It was on demand.
It was on demand, and in the beginning, it was on. You could get it on most cable networks. You couldn't get it on DirecTV. I'm trying to remember In Demand was one of them. It was on the Dish network.
Yeah, I know it was on Dish because I got it on Dish. So.
Most people could get it. It was a bummer that we couldn't get it on on DirecTV immediately. Be that as it may, those shows. This is no bullshit. I could tell you that, and I'm not looking to knock any other company, but we did better numbers than TNA with some of their live pay-per-views currently. And it was cumulative over, and it wasn't like blow away, but, there were numbers that added up to 10, 12, 15,000 buys over the course of the time.
Right.
And, it didn't sustain that number, but they did in the beginning. And it was a lot of fun doing them and, trying it. Was it a success? It's hard to make money in this business, and it's the wrestling, there's only one man making money in this business. And you know where he lives, and it's in Connecticut. And that's it. That's it. That's it. You can
any way you slice it. It's
right.
just
The new management at Ring of Honor, Sinclair Broadcasting, their heart is in the right place, and their mindset's in the right place, and there's going to be growing pains, and they're I know in my when I sold the company, I felt that I was at least selling it to people that, have the best interests, and they do. And, it's still going to need some time to, for lack of a better way to put it, to shake out. And they're feeling their way through it too. Joe Kopp's a good guy, and he's vested in this, and it's a tough business. So, what you've seen in the last year and a half, there's been some hiccups, ups and downs, but I think it's going to level out, and I enjoy still being involved with the product, and I feel like I'm watching it continue to grow.
Well, I know Dez has a lot of questions about your sale to Sinclair, but I just want to kind of get this out of the way because to me, there's the elephant in the room. Because we recently were able to talk to Nigel McGuinness about his DVD that just came out. And, Cary, you were there when Nigel was first hired in Ring of Honor, and now, obviously, he's working back with Ring of Honor in a rather different position. He's no longer in the ring. But how does for you, is it kind of I don't know any other way to put this, but When Nigel came back to Ring of Honor, it felt to me like a guy coming home. And he's expressed his opinions on it, and now he's in a rather different position. He's the matchmaker, he's the authority figure. But you've known Nigel obviously practically the majority of his United States career. How is it working with him, seeing him back in what I want to call his home promotion?
Well, I mean, if you're asking on a personal level, I mean, I love him being there.
Yeah, I do mean, on that personal level. Excluding the TV and stuff.
Well, I mean, on a personal level, I love him being there, and he's, it's unfortunate, and he'll be the first to tell you that, his wrestling career was cut short, but be that as it may, his career is not cut short, and, he's still involved, and it's like, he's a great asset, to have there. He's a great character and a representative of the product and an on-air figure as, and being a matchmaker and being involved, throwing in his 2 cents, which we all get to do. It's really nice. And, I have nothing, it's like over the years working with these various people, whether it's, Bryan Danielson or these stars, some guys you're friendly with, some guys you're like, hey, what's up? And that's it. And other guys you hang out with a little. And Nigel's one of the guys that I've gotten to know and spend some time with, and I could say he's a friend. And it's great to have him around. And he's got a great mind, and he's always thinking, and he likes to suggest things, whether people want to hear it or not. And I'm not saying as where he's pushy or anything, but he's got his opinions on what people want to see, and he has a right to voice it. And it's really good to have him there.
So, Cary, I do want to talk a little bit about the fallout here from HDNet. And I think it caught a lot of people by surprise when the HDNet program was officially canceled. And I made, obviously, a lot of fans who really enjoyed that program. It really disappointed us. And then a few months later, the announcement came that you were selling to Sinclair. Did one eventually affect the other? Was the idea of getting another television show on Sinclair, was that sort of the straw that broke the camel's back in a sense, and had you eventually sell?
Not really. I mean, I was a one-man band here with Ring of Honor, as far as, backing it. And if we were doing, I learned a long time ago from a very wise man in wrestling, Dutch Mantel. And he'd say to me, this is when we were doing our magazine in Puerto Rico, and he was booking. I don't know if you guys know who Dutch is, but he was.
Oh, yes, we are aware of Dirty Dutch.
Great wrestler in his day.
Absolutely.
Great wrestler, a phenomenal booker, had a tremendous career, not only in Memphis, but in Puerto Rico. He booked IWA Puerto Rico, which had an incredible run. That's why we did our magazine, 2000, 2005. Then went to TNA. He's been around. And Dutch used to say, everything is not always what it seems. And, everything's not always what it seems. And, I was just in a position where, I had to make a move with the company. It wasn't sensible as a businessman to continue doing this. If it was making money and I was enjoying it, and I could sustain it, fine. But, it wasn't at that level. So I was basically looking to make a move. The HDNet, losing HDNet, and me getting, finding Sinclair, having Sinclair being interested, just sort of happened. It really had no bearing on one or the other. I guess in the end it was better that it happened that way in that order. but they were interested regardless. So it didn't affect it. That's the answer.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think Des, that kind of is the overarching.
I can't be any more honest than I'm being.
Yeah, no, that covers it very well.
Des had like 3 or 4 questions, and pretty much you covered all of them in that answer, because we were also kind of, and Des and I were talking about this off air for a little bit, in that when you, as you put it, kind of became a more prominent position in Ring of Honor in 2003. Did you have that vision of I mean, obviously you had high hopes for the Ring of Honor product. The DVD was, DVDs were selling, and there are numbers out there and whatever. But when you envisioned it, did you ever think Ring of Honor, you know what, I'm going to put this on TV? Did that even broach the idea?
No, not at all. Nope. It just everything just sort of. Was that synergy kind of thing. Things just happened along the way. And, we were approached by HDNet at one point. We were, and same with the original pay-per-views. We were approached by somebody, and, I'll gamble. I like to, think of, no guts, no glory, right?
Exactly. You have to take the risk, and why not?
And at what cost is the question. So at the time I was able to, it was a sensible business decision to try it, and it continued to be a relatively sensible business decision. But as time went on, it wasn't looking that way, and I needed help, and there was no, so either I would find someone to buy the company, or maybe have to get out, and that had been the end. So it was much better to be able to sell Ring of Honor, keep the product alive, keep the name going, keep the legacy. Continuing, and here we sit in January, late January of 2013.
Yes, sir.
And we're still here.
Hey, and
alive and well, may I say.
And a great ambassador to Ring of Honor, might I add.
Well, exactly. It's a testament to Ring of Honor in the sense that, and I like to equate Ring of Honor to the comedian Louis C.K. in that he took a risk and he put out one of his products online. He knows about piracy and all. Technology has changed in the last 10, 11 years, and you really have to find a different way to put out your product. And I know that there may be some surrounding negativity about what a Ring of Honor is, and I think that only comes from the people like me and like Des who have been fans for a while, and I kind of think of us putting it in. We look through rose-colored glasses, but now Ring of Honor, to me anyway, and Cary, feel free to disagree with me 100%, but I feel that it's a different product now. It's no longer a DVD product, it's a television product. And for my money, Ring of Honor still puts on some of the best TV when you compare it to some of the other products that are out there. And as you said, Sinclair has bought it. Obviously, they have a little bit more control over it. And you are still you're still on board, and as we were saying off air, I hope to see you at Supercard of Honor this year.
Well, you will see me. You just got to show up.
Definitely.
But their intentions are, yes, it's a big corporation, and I'm not going to speak on their behalf. But they're vested in the product, and that's the main thing. You could slice and dice this thing to death, and websites and message boards and all this bullshit, and nobody knows what's really going on. They want to talk about what's going on or think they know what's going on, but like Dutch said, everything is not what it seems, and they don't know. And nobody knows how hard it is to sustain. And I listened to the interview with Gabe that you guys did, which was good. and gave himself.
Well, let me say, Cary, I appreciate that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that is.
No,
I
gave himself referenced, that there was only a few Evolve shows, and less than he would have liked. And it's like with the wrestling economy, and he still provides a good product to the fans, no doubt about it. With that and the other company, and it's just hard to draw people. I mean, look at TNA.
Yeah, Des and I've had many conversations.
They go to these towns with Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy and draw 500 people.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, who the fuck thinks anyone can do good in this?
Right, and they're on Spike TV. They're not on.
Right.
And I'm not behooving Sinclair at all, but Sinclair's syndicated.
That was not to knock TNA, and that was not to knock Evolve. It's just, but it's like it's so difficult to get people to come out.
Right,
they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost them a dime.
Nope. Well, Cary, that kind of goes into what another thing I want to ask you about is that you mentioned you've been.
But let me just say one other thing. Hold on, along these lines. I went to Madison Square Garden on December 27th to see my beloved friend Tyler Black and Claudio, not to mention Brian, but I was close with Claudio and Tyler, to see them at Madison Square Garden at their first appearance, and it was wonderful. But that's not the point of what I'm saying. The point of what I'm saying is, from when I wasn't even alive, but from all through this, when I was alive, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, wrestling was at the Garden once a month on a Monday night, and it wasn't a pay-per-view, and it basically sold out every fucking show. Now, here they come to the Garden, second show of the year. Second show of the year, and it's Christmas week. Now, I'm in the ticket business. Christmas week, when you have stuff running on, whether it's Broadway shows, concerts, that's a good week. Kids are off. They couldn't sell out the Garden.
That's actually kind of what I wanted to touch upon, Cary, was the fact that you weren't there.
And it was all there, and it's not because they don't have a good product. They have a good product. They're the biggest stars in the world, and I like the WWE product personally. But anyway, they couldn't sell it out with all the bullets. And what does this all mean? And I'm raising my voice because there's just a lack of interest in pro wrestling in general. People stay home, the internet, between the internet, YouTube, pay-per-views, too much exposure, too much television. Video killed the radio star.
Exactly, and it's not just wrestling.
Which, by the way, was the first video ever on MTV when they showed videos. But it goes on and on. So this is where I'm going. It's hard to get people to come out. I mean, for $20 or something, $25 or sometimes even less, you can come to a Ring of Honor show and see the best wrestling in the world, or some of the best wrestling in the world when it comes to your town, and people don't even want to get people to come is very difficult. So it's a tough business. Sorry for that rant, boys.
No, it's fine. I mean, it is not falling upon deaf ears. I mean, Des and I have had plenty of conversations, and that was actually where I wanted to lead, was the fact that you are in the ticket business. I mean, you've already mentioned it. You've been a part of the entertainment business, whether in one form or another. You've seen it, and it's not just pro wrestling. It's entertainment as a whole. The whole industry is down, shall we say, and people, you'd have to adapt. And I think Ring of Honor going to Sinclair and going to syndicated TV, that's adaptation, and that's what causes growth in business. So I guess bringing that up, have you, and this, you just kind of ranted about it, but in the overall, when it comes to concerts and stuff like that, why is it that people are not buying tickets and not willing to come out? I mean, even when you have name stars and name talent. You know, even Metallica concerts, stuff like
that. We
that.
can talk about the prices of tickets. Yes, to base value of a lot of tickets are way too expensive. But there's a trend in the music industry, and for example, Alicia Keys, who you couldn't pay me to go see, but she's a very good artist, just not my thing.
Right.
She's doing the tour now. Now she has tickets that are like, I don't know, top price is maybe $169, but she also has tickets that are like $50, you know, and like she scales them. Elton John is doing a small, old Elton John, who's still very popular, is doing a small tour now. He always likes to play. He'll have $150 tickets, but he'll also have $30 tickets, and it's like to draw the people in. But I don't think that's the answer. For me, because I'm old enough to remember this, we would go to see Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones or the Grateful Dead or whomever we would go to see, and except for seeing their picture in a magazine or the album cover, or maybe in a rare instance on one of these TV shows that they would have in the 70s, Don Kirshner's rock concert or one of these oddball shows, you would never, ever see these people playing. There was no way. So when you went to whether it was the Allman Brothers or the Santana or whoever the hell you went to, it was like, holy shit, we're going to see them live. Wonder what no one knew what the opening song was. No one knew what the encore was. Now, if something plays the first night of the tour, the whole thing's on YouTube. What mystery is there? None. That's what has killed the whole entertainment business, in my opinion. That has hurt it tremendously. You know, there's bands that I still love to go to see, you know, and I will go, and I'll say to myself, I'm not going to watch these YouTube. I want to, you know, and I can't help myself sometimes, you know, and that's, there's no mystery. It's like when the little dog pulled the curtain behind the wizard, you know, that's the story right there. And, you know, it relates to a lot of things. And, but that's the way, you know, things have evolved, and me having a small tirade about it is not going to change it, but that's the answer to your question. That's one of the contributing factors. The other thing is people don't care as much, I've noticed. You know, that's why you see these older rock bands that keep playing, because this is an era of people my age that like to go to shows. I don't know if young kids, you know, except a flash in the pan. I'm not talking about a little kid that goes to Justin Bieber or, you know, but like, you know, I got a question for you guys.
Shoot.
Are you guys rock and roll fans at all?
I am, for sure. Des?
Fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it fair to say that some of the great anthems of rock and roll are Freebird by Leonard Skinner, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones, Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2? Do those qualify as anthems?
I'd say so, yeah.
I would absolutely agree.
Can you please name me one anthem since 1990?
Man, you know, that is such a hard question. I mean, because you get into that 90s music, and, you know, and I'm not behooving anyone's music
You
taste.
go up to right now. What is it? Say It Ain't So by Weezer?
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesus.
Why did you have to go there, Cary?
I'm just saying, you know, now, you know, so like that's, I don't know. So we're into the rock and roll business now, but there's just, you know.
Well, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are rock and roll fans. That's the atmosphere of Ring of Honor. It was a rock and roll show. I mean, they make the commentary about the black T-shirts, you know, and you watch ECW, it looked like a rock and roll show. Hey, you watch Ring of Honor back in the day, like when Special K came out or when Joe came out. That is a rock and roll crowd, you know, cheering. The chant is hit, you know, the champ is here, going with his music. That's pretty much the audience of Ring of Honor.
Well, you know, I don't know how this all ties together, but it gets back to your question about, you know, what's changed. And, are these changes for the better? I don't think so in general. As far as, you go anywhere in life, what do people do? They stare at their phone. They stare at their fucking phone.
Yep.
I raise my hand. I'm a conspirator sometimes. But if all you do is look at your phone, and all you do, not all you do, predominantly is tweeting, looking at your Facebook, ooh, someone liked what I said, you're not living. What are you going to write about? What are you going to do?
Well, luckily, Des, and I'm not going to put you out there, but luckily you don't necessarily have that problem. I'm just saying.
Thanks.
You're welcome, Des.
So this is now you got me on a rant on modern society. But once again, I am a conspirator to the crime too. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is, And this is what's, many years from now, no one's going to be able to have a nice conversation like we're having now, because they're not going to know how.
Well, speaking of crowds, since we can kind of tie this in, I'm going to say, and Des, obviously you covered it then too, 2010, we started seeing more children at Ring of Honor shows.
Are you guys gonna edit the last 15 minutes because we didn't talk about wrestling?
Absolutely not, Cary.
We don't edit here.
Yeah, I don't even know how, so that's not a problem. No, but I do think it ties in because, as I was saying, in 2010, and maybe even a little bit before that, I could say 2007, 2008, but in 2010, I really did start noticing a lot more children at Ring of Honor shows. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I think it's, it's good in my sense because, children are wrestling fans. I started as a wrestling fan as a child, and so did you, Cary. So how has the Ring of Honor product changed and evolved itself to that new fan base that is getting more eyes on the Ring of Honor product? And a lot of them are very young.
I don't know if it's I don't know if how to answer that properly. I don't really think there's been an intent to evolve the product to an age, to a particular kind of market.
Right. I'm not trying to correlate it to like WWE and saying, oh, we're PG now. I am not trying to correlate that at all. I just, I guess it's a very broad question. So.
I don't think that that's considered. I think that what is still considered, and Delirious, who is a brilliant guy who handles most of the stuff in the back, it's just interesting. I know. A matter of fact, we had a nice night last night. We hung out. We watched the Rumble, and he is only interested in one thing: presenting the best possible product that can be presented. And there's nothing like. I don't ever think it's been even considered like, oh, this kind of market or this kind of age. We just want to give the most non-insulting, best wrestling product. And through the whole term of Ring of Honor, whether I've been in, when I got involved and through my ownership era and the different guys that were in the back who have come and gone, everybody, my hat is off to all of them because everybody had the same ethic to present the best possible wrestling. And it happened most of the time. You're never going to go 4 for 4 with 3 home runs every game. But, we have a damn good batting average.
Hey, even Kiss took their makeup off for a little bit. So that's all I'm going to say.
But that's what it's been about, and it still is. And that's the beautiful part of it. And we have a lot of good shows coming up. I don't know when this is going to air, but when is this going to air?
Tomorrow, probably.
Well, actually,
Actually, Chris knows better than I do.
Well, yes. Definitely, Cary, just talk away about what's coming up in Ring of Honor, because we want to know, what is it that Ring of Honor is playing? It's 2013, almost 11 years.
A lot of good stuff coming up. We have the TV taping coming up this weekend in Baltimore on Saturday, which is always a lot of fun. If anyone's listening who hasn't been to a TV taping in Baltimore, the arena's downtown. It's near the harbor. I'm blanking out. I should know the name of the damn place.
Burns.
The Burns. Thank you. But yeah, it's a fun place. It's a great atmosphere, and we always get good crowds there. There's going to be some shows coming up. Let me just think for a second. I'm not staring at the internet. There's a show in Cincinnati on February 16th, and that's on a Saturday. Then there is the 11th anniversary in Chicago on March 2nd, and the following day there will be a TV taping, which is going to be really cool to do. We've been going to Chicago Ridge since '04. It's a great building. It's comfortable there. We always have a lot of fun there, and we're excited to be doing a TV taping. You know, it's nice to do it in other spots. There's a show in Asheville, North Carolina on March 30th. That's a Saturday night. And then there's the big weekend coming up in New York City.
Supercard of Honor 7, which I will be at live at the Hammerstein.
And that is on Friday night at 8 o'clock. And the next day, on April 6th, there is a TV taping at the upstairs at the Ballroom, which you guys know this, but that's the first place Monday Night Raw ever filmed.
Yes.
And so that's, and we're going to Toronto in May, and it's shaping up to be a good year.
Yes, and the last one listed, not to interrupt you, Cary, last one listed is Milwaukee. That's a Friday, July 12th. And that's the last one listed on the site, so I'm sure you guys know where you're going.
And I'm sure you guys know this, but today it was announced that Alex Kozlov and Rocky Romero will be appearing in Chicago.
That's right.
And
so
that's exciting to have these guys back. And so there's a lot of good stuff going on. It's been a great year with Ring of Honor. The whole Kevin Steen run has been fabulous. Working with Davey Richards continuously and the Briscoes, Adam Cole is amazing. Kyle O'Reilly, Michael Elgin, we've yet to see the best of him. Mike Bennett, Roderick Strong is like, one of the Babe Ruths of Ring of Honor at this point. And I know I'm going to be leaving names out, having Charlie Haas and Caprice and Cedric are a great young tag team. And, we're having Rhett Titus and someone's going to be mad that I left out their name. But I'm just going through it real quick. It's still a great era, and guys like Steve Corino and Jimmy Jacobs are just so talented, and having them with company is just fantastic, and it's still a thrill to be involved.
Absolutely, and I'm going to throw in a couple names in there. I mean, guys like ACH, Silas Young, Adam Page, a lot of the some of them aren't young in age, but they are the up-and-coming talents on the indie scene. I mean, Ring of Honor is giving them a platform to ply their trade, and I think that's always what Ring of Honor has always been about, in my opinion.
Yes, and there's going to be some surprises coming up. I'm not going to give away anything, but there's going to be some good announcements in the next few days and weeks. So keep your eye on the ROH Wrestling website, and if you could join us at any of these shows, any of your listeners, please do. You certainly get your money's worth when we come to Ring of Honor.
Absolutely. So, Des, do you have any other questions before I try to wrap this up?
As soon as we get ready to wrap it here, Cary, you've been very gracious with your time, and we appreciate you taking us through the timeline there for you in Ring of Honor. We really appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. You guys are knowledgeable, and it's enjoyable to speak to you. I look forward to seeing you, Chris, in New York City, and if you'd ever like to speak to me again, just get in touch.
Absolutely. And as always with all our guests, Cary, let some of our listeners know any upcoming projects. I mean, even if they're your own personal projects, obviously we just ran down a lot of Ring of Honor stuff, or where some of them can reach you on, say, on a social network on one of their phones, clearly.
Oh, that's all right. I gave him the whole, I just gave him the whole 9 yards. I'm just looking forward to this, these upcoming weeks and months and these years. And Des, it was good talking to you too, and I appreciate your guys' time.
Always. Thank you, Cary.
All right. Take care.